All right, welcome back for example 3. We're just going to work on the proof. We are given angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. So remember that equals two angles adding up to 180 degrees. And angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Okay, we need to prove that angle 3 and angle 4 are supplementary. Okay. So let's go ahead and put some numbers in this and just see if this just makes sense so we can just kind of wrap our brains around this. So angle 1 and angle 3 are supplementary. So angle 2 looks pretty big. I'm going to call that 150 and I'm going to call this 30. So they add up to 180. Okay, cool. And then it says angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So if 1 is 30, then that would mean that 3 is 30 degrees. And we need to prove that 3 and 2 are supplementary. Well, we can see through our little using our numbers that they are supplementary. So now we just need to figure out how we're going to prove it, okay? So here on your problems in your homework, they're gonna give you a plan, but don't read it, okay? Do not read it. I want you to try to think it through. We're gonna try to solve this proof without them giving us hints, okay? So, don't look at it. Don't look at it. The dragon does not want us to look at it. Do not look at it. Okay, all right, so don't look at it. I wish I had something to cover it up, but I don't. Okay, so just don't look at it. You're looking, don't stop looking at it. I feel like you're looking at it. Don't do it. Okay, so, whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, there we go. There we go. And it's on your paper too, so don't look at it. Don't cheat. Okay, so just don't, we're just gonna not look at that right now, okay? We're gonna use our brains. We're gonna see what we can do. Okay, so we have angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary and angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. We need to prove that angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary. Okay, cool. So let's start here with this first given piece of information. Angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. Okay, that is given. All right. I guess I can put this in there too, but I'm just gonna wait for that. Okay, I'm just gonna put this. Okay, so angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary. So what did we talk about? Whenever we have this, what can be the next thing that we write? Well, the next thing we can write is measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2. We can make it an equation, right? Equals 180 degrees because of the, yes, definition of supplementary angles. Okay, so there. Now, we need to prove that 3 and 2 are supplementary. So this is when there's nothing really else we can go on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in this angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Okay, and that's given. Now, what can I do with this? Uh-oh, you can't even see it. What can I do with this? Well, one thing I can do, what would be really nice is I know that these two are the same, is so instead of writing this angle 1 would be to write an angle 3 there, right? And then that would show that angle 3 plus angle 2 is equal to 180, and then I would be really, really super close to showing that angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary. However, what we have right now is we have a formatting issue because this is congruence and this is dealing with equals. But I know how to change this, right? So I can just go measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3 by the definition of congruent angles. Okay, now instead of writing measure of angle 1 up here, I can substitute in the measure of angle 3 there. So I'm going to substitute measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 2 equals 180. So right here, right? Measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 3. And so instead of writing measure of angle 1, I'm just going to substitute this measure of angle 3 right in there. And that's how I get the measure of angle 3 plus measure of angle 2 equals 180. Is just substituting that in. right there, okay? So this is the substitution property of equality, okay? Now, there's not any other numbers, and that's okay because we can just go like this. Watch that. Make a 6. Boom. Now, what do we need to prove? We need to prove that angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary. So we're right here. So remember it's a definition, so it can go from here to here, and it can also go from here to here. We can say that angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary angles by the definition of supplementary angles. And there we have it. We proved it. All right, do you see? Yeah. Boom. Okay, so if we look at the plan, it says use the definitions of supplementary angles, which we did, and congruent angles. So we had definition of congruent angles. So use the definition of supplementary angles and definition of congruent angles and substitution, which is what we just did, to show that the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. And then by the definition of supplementary angles, you can say, which is what we did there, angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary angles. So this is kind of like giving you a guide. However, I really think that you should try to use your brain and try to figure it out before looking at that. So kind of try to get yourself started, see if you can figure it out on your own, use your brain. And then after you do that, if you're successful, that's awesome. Then go back like we did and read the plan. Or if you get stuck, then read the plan, and that will kind of give you like a hint or a clue or something like that. Okay? So let's go to the next example. All right, so check it out, example 3. We have these 3 angles, angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3. And what it says is given that angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary and angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary, we have to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Okay? Now it's giving us a plan, but we're not going to look at it. Okay? We're not looking at it. Don't look at it on your paper either. Don't look at it. Don't look at it. Okay? Because we're going to try to think. Don't stop looking at it. Your eyes can feel. Don't do it. Just stop it. Okay. So here we go. We're going to try to figure this out. So let's go ahead and put some numbers on this to so we can see if this just even makes sense to us. Okay, so it says angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. So remember, complementary, that is 2 angles that add up to 90 degrees, right? So that's 90 degrees complementary. Oh. And okay, so if angle 1 and 2 are complementary, I'm just going to say that like that's 90. So I'm going to say that angle 1 is, I'm just making this up, right? I'm going to say that's 40 degrees and angle 2 is 50 degrees, okay? Because you add those two together, you get 90. And then it says angle 2 and angle 3 are also complementary. So if angle 2 and 3 are complementary and angle 2 is 50, then that means that angle 3 must be 40 degrees, right? Okay. So what we have to prove is that angle 1 and angle 3 are congruent. And we can see that they are. So let's go ahead and try to figure this out. So the first thing we're going to do is just write down all of this given information. So we have angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. And angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. So that's given, right? Then what do we do with that? Well, we can write our equations, right? So we can write the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 90 degrees, and we can write the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 is equal to 90 degrees. And why can we say that? Because of the definition of complementary angles. So we've been dealing with the definition of supplementary angles a lot, but now we're dealing with the definition of complementary angles. It's the same idea, it's just instead of it equaling 180, it's equal to 90. Okay, so again, we want to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Okay, cool. Well, what do we see here? There's no more given information. This is it. So we have to just use what we have to prove that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. I mean, we did some numbers. We know that that's the case, right? But now we have to prove it. So what do you see? Well, what I see is these both are equal to 90 degrees, right? So if they're both equal to 90, then that means that I can substitute this equation here in for 90 because it's equal to 90. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. You know, we use the same tactic maybe in the last example, like example 2 or something. Okay, so that is just substitution. Property of equality. All right. Now, do you remember what we did here? Okay, so we set, so if you see, they both have this measure of angle 2, right? So if we say that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 2, right? What is that called? Do you remember? That's the reflexive property of equality. Then, if we rewrite this big old thing, again, what can we do? If we know that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 2, then what we can do is we can subtract it because it is the same thing, right? We just proved it's the same thing. We're subtracting the same thing from both sides, which we can do because of the subtraction property of equality. And what we're left with is this cancels and this cancels, and we're left with measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of angle 3, right? And that's just through simplification. But is that what we need? We need angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. So we're not quite there, but we are super duper close. And we just need to write angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Why? By the definition of congruent angles. And that's how you do it. Oh, well, there we go. Now you can see it. Okay, so there's a couple theorems that we want to talk about briefly. Oh, we forgot to look at the plan. Okay, so let's look at the plan. It says the measures of complementary angles add to 90 degrees by definition. Okay, so definition of complementary angles. So we're going to use substitution to show that the sum of both pairs of angles are equal, which is what we did here, right? And then use the subtraction property of equality, which is what we did, and then the definition of congruent angles, which is what we did right there to show that they're congruent. So, yep. So there was the plan, but I just think it's always good to just kind of think these through, start to see some patterns, right? So whenever we say angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary, we go ahead and put the into the equations, and then we can set them equal to each other by substitution. We got our little reflexive property of equality, subtraction, all that. So it's just, hopefully you can kind of start to see the patterns and strategy here. And this is what you're going to need to solve your problems in the future. So let's go ahead and look at these other theorems. There's 2 other theorems, and like I'm going to say, it shouldn't be new to you, but these need to be on flashcards. You need to write them down. You need to go through your flashcards. You need to memorize them. It's going to make your life easier. Okay, so the first one is the right angles congruence theorem. The right angles congruence theorem says all right angles are congruent. All right angles are congruent. Well, what is a right angle? It's an angle that's 90 degrees. So if we have one right angle that's equal to 90 degrees, and this is A, and then we have another right angle which is equal to 90 degrees, and that's B, and we have angle B and angle A and angle B are right angles, then they're both equal to 90 and they're congruent to each other. Okay, That's the right angle congruence theorem. That one seems pretty obvious. Okay, but now it has a name. Awesome. Okay, on to the next is the congruent complements theorem. And what this one says is if two angles are complementary to the same angle or to two congruent angles, then the two angles are congruent. So if two angles are complementary to the same angle, then the two angles are congruent. So if two angles are complementary to the same angle, so if we have, you know, angle 1 and angle 2 and angle 3. So this is angle 1, this is angle 2, and this is angle 3. Okay, and angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, so let's just call this 70 and 20, right? Those equal 90. And then 2 and 3 are complementary. That would mean that 3 would have to be 70 if 2 is 20. Those are equal to 90. Then if we have that, two angles are complementary, 1 and 3 are complementary to the same angle, angle 2, then the two angles, angle 1 and 3, are congruent to each other by the congruent complements theorem. All right? So let's go ahead and see how this plays out by looking at the problem that we just solved previously, okay? So remember this problem that we just solved, we had angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, and angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary, and we did all this lovely, lovely, lovely work to show that angle 1 and angle is congruent to angle 3. Okay, so let's try this problem again, okay? Without looking at the plan, don't look at it. Well, this is a different plan. So, angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary, and angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and write down that given information. Angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. And angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. Okay. Therefore, because they are both complementary to the same angle, we can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3 by the congruent, oh, this is given. I'm sorry, you're supposed to say this is the given information. And then we can just go directly there because of the congruent complements theorem. Boom. There you go. And yeah, so instead of all of this, we did all of this and just like that, just because of that theorem. So that's it for today, everyone. Awesome job, and we will see you with the next lesson. All right, bye.